welcome everybody who's joined. We're just waiting for the rest of the participants to and your colleagues to join. We'll start promptly at 5 past, just to give everybody a chance to join us. So if you need to go and get some coffee or tea or something to eat, this will be the good time. And then we'll start promptly at 5 past. We have one short session, a brief session on the systems of CPD, how to make your life easy, and then we'll go into the AI part straight after that. There will be some breaks in between, but we'll come back to you within the next 5 minutes. So we'll start just before 5 past, and then so that our presenters can start promptly at 5 past. Thanks.
Nicole, do you want to just share your screen again, just so it's all ready? So it's good.
Let me just get it up.
Now, also, would you be able to send this to us later so that, because I'm sure everyone will ask for a
Can I send
copy.
a PDF version? Is that fine?
Perfect, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to mute for a minute or two and come back within a few minutes. So we'll start, as I said, at 5 past. So if you need to do anything now, please do so, and we'll come back to you shortly. Hello, Nicole? Okay, so welcome everyone. This warm afternoon seems to have warmed up in Johannesburg. I don't know where the rest of the country looks like. Welcome to you all. We're going to start first with the explanation on the system that Evan Noik and Nicole Gladwin are going to present. And that's supposedly to make CPD easier for all of you. I don't know if that's possible, but maybe they're going to give us a rational explanation. And then we'll go on to Edwin Selbst, who's going to talk to us about AI and how you can use it within your practice and what it means for you and the tips and tricks, which is a very extensive subject. And I know that Edwin is a very thorough person. So I'm not too sure, Evan and Nicole, on how to expand on that introduction. So I'm actually just going to hand it over to you and you can do the explaining and the demoing. Thanks very much. Welcome, everybody. There will be a break straight after this for a transition to Edwin's presentation, which will be about 5 minutes. And then around about 3 o'clock, we'll have like a 10-minute break at this stage. In this particular case, you can keep your cell phones on. It's fine. We won't be interrupted. So if you've got any questions, please address them in the chat or in the Q&A, and Danny will do his best to field them, and the presenters will answer them in the best fashion possible. So, Nicole, you're going to do the presenting. Over to you.
Thank you, Stan. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's demonstration. What we're basically going to do is just take you through the CPD requirements for both Psycho and URBA, and then we'll give you an actual demonstration on a system of how to document your CPD annual plan. What is continuing professional development? So what is CPD? CPD is just the process of ongoing learning and development, as well as ensuring that you are continuously maintaining your professional competence, which is specific to your role. So typically what Psycho requires, and we will get into it and further just emphasize it later on, is the process of you actually reflecting on what your current role requires and what development you need to maintain your professional as well as technical competence. Okay, what Psycho has also done is they've aligned themselves with the International Education Standard 7, and they define that as the CPD is a continuation of initial professional development, the learning and development through which aspiring professional accountants first develop competence leading to performing the role of a professional accountant. CPD is learning and development that takes place and that develops and maintains professional competence to enable professional accountants to continue to perform their roles competently. Okay. Who must comply with CPD? So all Psycho members are required to comply, that being CAs, AGAs, ATs, as well as tax practitioners. So anyone who holds a Psycho membership, as well as anybody who is professionally active. So if you are actively performing any professional function, whether it be audits, assurance, tax, whatever role you play in the organization, you must fully comply with all the CPD requirements. It would differ if you are a tax practitioner compared to if you are a CA, which we'll go through later on, but you would have to require with those specific CPD requirements. Okay. If you are not professionally active, then you do not have to maintain CPD. This is for those who are professionally active members. Okay, the principles, constitutional foundation and lifelong learning. So Psycho's mission basically is to support lifelong learning to ensure that you guys remain relevant in the profession as well as maintain professional competence. So attaining and maintaining professional knowledge at the level required to be able to provide competent professional service based on the current technical and professional standards. Okay. And they do encourage members to continuously enhance your technical and professional skills and knowledge, and that is why they've moved more towards the out-based approach rather than the input. This is just a reflective learning plan. So in recent years, like we discussed, Psycho has adapted their CPD requirements, moving from the more input-based, which was mainly the hours requirement. So instead of just complying with the hours, moving to more of an output base. So meaning that you actually reflect and do a self-assessment as to what CPD you require. So what personal professional learning gaps do you have within your role that need further development? Okay. Then next you would plan and complete learning activities relevant to that. So not just complying with what psycho requires or URBA requires or what is required of tax practitioners, but what is specific to your actual role. Okay. Then you would undertake learning activities. You would then reflect on that. So based on what you've learned in whatever learning activity you undertook, whether it was a webinar, a course, you would then reflect on how effective that was to address the learning needs you identified. And then the last step would be to actually sit down and reflect on whether that adequately addressed your learning needs or whether this would be an ongoing learning area for you based on your current role. Members' responsibilities. So the first would be to plan and review. So again, just looking at what your current role is and where you would like to be in the future, and what CPD or what personal gaps do you have in your current technical skills or knowledge, and how you would like to address that. Then you would actually undertake the activities. So looking for courses that are relevant to what you would like to expand on, or whether it be reading up, doing research on certain standards that have changed, whatever the case may be. So planning to actually undertake an activity to address that learning need. We would then have to complete the compulsory CPD, so making sure that you are meeting the psycho URBA tax practitioner requirements, as well as submitting your annual declaration to psycho, which usually is around the end of February. So just logging onto their portal and making sure that you are actually completing the annual declaration within the specified timeframes. They usually do send out an email as well, just to make sure that you are aware that you need to do it. And then the next step would be provide your learning plan when requested. So if you have been selected for verification, Psycho will make you aware of that via email, and you would then have to submit all of your CPD. So not just the CPD annual plan, but also verifiable evidence of the activities undertaken. So you'll need to keep record of every activity, whether it be a course, a webinar, whether it be e-learning, whatever it was, any certificates you have, attendance registers, if there was assessments, the results of such, any kind of evidence you have to support that the activity was actually undertaken, you would need to keep and submit to Psycho for verification. Or if you haven't been selected for audit, you would then have to keep it for 3 years. Okay. And then disciplinary referral. All members who are non-compliant with the CPD policy as a whole, whether it be URBAs or psychers, will be referred to the legal department or the member discipline department for further action. So I do highly recommend that you comply with the CPD policy relevant to your role and your designation. CPD activities, so learning and development options. What are the different types of activities you can undertake to address development areas? It could be webinars, e-learning, it could be on-the-job training, it could be research that you've done around a certain subject or recent changes to the standards. It could be exams, assessments done through e-learning as well, or for your professional examinations. It could be practical experience, could be a range of things. It could be an article or paper that you've written on a certain area. So it could be, if you're a tax practitioner, on the recent budget speech or whatever it was, any paper, article you've written could be an example of that as well. Okay. We also have professional participation and practical experience, course development. So if you do, could be internal as well in your firm, if you do create training material on what you've learned or any new changes to the standards, that could be a CPD activity as well. Okay, and then verifiable CPD. So the evidence that you need to keep must be evidence that proves the activity was undertaken. It must be able to be corroborated. So by this, what Psycho and URBA mean is that a third party could verify that you actually did partake in this CPD activity. And then all evidence must be retained, again, also for a period of 3 years subsequent to the activity being undertaken. And the evidence must relate to your current role or career. So not just for the compulsory areas, but you would also have to you'd have to undertake CPD that is relevant to your current role. CPD reflection. So the third part of the CPD would be to reflect on the activities undertaken. So typically the 3 questions to prompt your reflection, and I would recommend putting as much detail as possible, is: did the activity adequately address your learning need? So the webinar or the course that you undertook, did it actually address the development gaps you identified? Next would be, have you applied this learning in the workplace? I think it's pretty straightforward. If you have, if it was relevant to the current work you're doing and you have applied it, great. If not, will it be applied in future? Next would be, did this activity lead to new learning areas you would like to explore? So if it has addressed the learning need, but you have identified more gaps, you would then reflect on such and expand on what those areas would be and how it was relevant to this activity. Okay, more considerations when reflecting could be, if it is relevant, for argument's sake, to a recent standard change, you could include in your reflections performance feedback where appropriate. If you have applied this in the workplace, you could also consider whether you can perform your role better through this, as well as if this has increased your competence expected by the firm. So can you, including the activity, can you better complete and perform in your actual job? Okay. If it is that it's not just technical changes, it could be the ethics requirement, your ability to respond to the change in process. How did that impact just overall you as a professional? So were you able to apply this in the workplace as needed? Did you have to change processes? Was there sometimes when there is changes, you need to change your processes in the workplace, the requirements for certain documentation? And that could also be identified as part of your self-assessment. Okay. Introduction to the psychocompetency framework. I don't know if you guys have worked through the pathways to relevance, but I have found Psycha really have tied in or integrated the competency framework across the board. So it's not just for trainee student accountants, it's also for chartered accountants. And they've really put a lot of emphasis on the pathways to relevance or the competency framework as a whole. So what they've done is they've basically said that even as a CA, you would still need to comply and undertake CPD that is relevant to the competency framework, and that would be the professional values and attitudes, the enabling competencies, and then the technical competencies. So for the professional values and attitudes, that would be your ethics, your personal professional citizenship, corporate citizenship. Your enabling competencies would be your digital acumen, your relational acumen, and then the technical competencies. There is quite a lengthy document on the Psycha site where they define which specific technical competencies would be relevant to your specific role. I would highly recommend reading through that. It is very interesting and it could help potentially identify development areas that you might want to explore. But the main focus really is on the professional values and professional competence through ethics. And they've really put an emphasis on this just based on the disrepute the profession has been under. They have stated that this is a starting point just to maintain professional competencies and to further develop those, not just throughout your career, but, you know, through your CPD as well. Just the competency framework. So again, it ties back into the CA. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but the CA 2025 framework, really it ties back into the competency framework that the trainees are currently demonstrating. So we've got our ethics, values, and attitudes are 3 different areas: the personal, business, and professional, which are psycho compulsory development areas. You then also have your citizenship, values, and attitudes: personal, citizenship, corporate, and professional. And then also lifelong learning, values, and attitudes. So your self-development, which would tie directly back into your CPD, and then adaptive mindset and agility as well. I believe that would, in actually applying your CPD in the workplace, it would tie in there as well. Okay, and then the acumens, we do have business acumen, business internal environment, business external environment, and then innovation and creativity. Decision-making acumen, we've got critical thinking, your integrated thinking, problem solving, judgment and decision-making, professional skepticism, which tie directly back, in my personal opinion, into the ethics as well. We've got your relational acumen, which is your communication skills, leadership skills, your people skills, self-management, emotional intelligence, teamwork, and relationship building skills. And then your digital acumen, your user competencies, new developments and protocols, your computational thinking, data knowledge and strategy, and then data analytics and automation. And then the last part of the framework would be the technical competencies. So I have just included an extract here because there is a very long list. I do, again, recommend reading through the Pathways to Relevance document. It really does break down just specifically per role what technical CPD you could be undertaking and at what level. Okay, but we do have the 3 main areas: inputs, business activities, and then the outputs leading to outcomes. Okay, your compulsory annual ethics reflection. So I think everybody would be aware, but SAICA has put a lot of emphasis on ethics in recent years, specifically from 2021. And their requirement is that every professional does reflect on business ethics, personal ethics, and professional ethics. Okay. Why does ethics matter? I think we're aware of all the scandals that have happened in the industry, but just to reduce the risk of further reputational damage and ensure that more ethical professionals are entering into the profession and that we are keeping up to date with the ethical landscape and ensuring that we comply with the ethics requirements as well as the Code of Professional Conduct and the SAICA bylaws. Okay. Your reflective plan. So again, you have to reflect on ethical competencies, evaluate to what extent you currently do meet professional ethics, business ethics, and personal, and then also undertake activities to further that as well. Okay. And this is just to ensure that we maintain public confidence in the reputation, just based on what has happened in the industry in the most recent years. Responsible leaders who behave ethically. SAICA has defined CAs as responsible leaders who create value within the organization as well as just in the profession and who behave ethically. So recognizing the difference between right and wrong, promoting ethical behavior within the workplace, and demonstrating a commitment to lifelong learning, ensuring that the public has confidence in the profession as a whole, in professionals, CAs, RAs to uphold ethical principles and conduct themselves in a professional, ethical manner at all times. And then also just to provide quality technical outputs within the industry, ensuring that in doing so, we are making a positive impact on the economy, the society, as well as just the public as a whole. Okay. As responsible leaders who make an impactful decisions, what are some of the attributes that you would hold to create value, or what competencies should be included in not your CPD, but your day-to-day as well. So Psycho basically said that, you guys create impact through integrated thinking. So synthesizing and making sense of ideas and information to identify and get an understanding of issues, considering relationships between operating units, interpreting and evaluating information. So this would speak to your technical competencies, making sure that you are technically competent to be able to provide a full range of professional services. Influencing and decide, establishing and maintaining relationships in the value creation chain using your technical competencies as well as your professional competencies to make impactful decisions. And then contributing to society, this would be to protect the public interest in the profession, ensuring that you are maintaining the professionalism of being a CA as well as the ethical principles of being a CA at all times. Which is the 3 pillars of ethics competencies broken down. So we have the 3 areas: personal ethics, business ethics, and professional ethics. And these, again, tie directly back to the COPC. They tie back to the CA 2025 framework, as well as the Pathways to Relevance framework. A lot of what you see on screen here would relate back directly to the original CA 2025 framework before it was reduced. But it would basically be personal ethics would be acting honestly, demonstrating integrity, carrying out work in a manner that protects the public interest, solving personal ethical dilemmas, or, making sure that you are making the correct personal ethical decisions. Business ethics would be upholding the ethical principles whilst carrying out professional services, so integrity, confidentiality, evaluating how you do contribute to the ethical culture of the organization, reporting on ethical issues, things like that. And then your professional ethics would be using an ethical reasoning processes to solve ethical dilemmas, again, upholding the fundamental principles of ethics, so your integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, as well as professional behavior. PSYCHA, we don't rate CPD at all, but PSYCHA does require that you demonstrate the ethics competency areas at a proficiency level 4. And what they mean by that is that you always demonstrate it under all circumstances. So ethical competence must be demonstrated consistently, regardless of how difficult the situation in which demonstrating ethics is, as well as just in complex situations. You must be able to demonstrate it at all times and in the most challenging circumstances as well. So you wouldn't rate yourself directly, but the requirement is that you are able to demonstrate these areas at a level 4 proficiency level. Okay, core personal ethics competencies, just to break it down a bit further. So the competencies would be integrity and honesty, accountability and responsibility, and then objectivity and independence. So PSYCHA CPD policy emphasizes maintaining competence within these principles and then ensuring that not only do you know what to do, what is right, but actually doing what is right. So personal ethics, it does seem ambiguous, but it really does form part of your professional competence and does form part of professional ethics, in my opinion, as well. And these principles should be demonstrated on a daily basis. Building ethical leadership through CPD, professional behavior and respect. So ensuring that you are treating others in the workplace with respect, you are communicating any issues, any unethical behavior, whatever it is, honestly and professionally, and then maintaining composure under stress and adhering to professional boundaries, ethical courage and moral leadership in situations where you do see someone doing something that is wrong or is just unethical, standing up for what is right, even though it is challenging, and setting that standard for your colleagues if you have trainees working under you, them as well. And then continuous self-reflection and moral awareness, being self-aware of your personal ethics and any biases you might have, as well as strengthening those and identifying areas that you could personally improve in. Core business ethics. The professional development framework establishes ethical competence that extends beyond just your organizational influence. These competencies ensure that you uphold public interest and maintain the professional reputation. So ensuring that you are promoting ethical governance across all business operations, whether that just be in the office, externally, and ensuring that you are taking part in the CPD requirements to further develop those. The 6 pillars of business ethics: ethical decision-making, fairness and anti-corruption. I think this one is quite important. Responsible stewardship, corporate governance, ethical leadership, and then ethical risk management. So applying ethical principles and professional judgment to business decisions. Conducting business honestly, rejecting bribery, or implementing transparent practices, so promoting fair treatment and not taking in any unethical or illegal activities. Responsible stewardship, so acting in long-term stakeholder interests, promoting sustainable financial practices, considering integrational impact, and accurately reporting on sustainability and social responsibility. Corporate governance, promoting transparency, ensuring reporting integrity, and just supporting internal controls that prevent misconduct. Ethical leadership, setting the ethical tone within the office by modeling principles that support open discussion, that support, ethical behavior and the reporting or discussion around unethical behavior and how they can be dealt with, aligning organizational values with the COPC as well as the ethical requirements, and then ethical risk management, ensuring that you have systems in place to identify and mitigate any unethical behavior that might be recognized within the organization. Okay. Core professional ethics competencies. These are based on multiple dimensions, so public interest focus, fundamental principles, threat management, ethical reasoning, consequence analysis, reporting obligations, and then general conduct, which essentially would be ensuring ethics is maintained as well as any unethical behavior is dealt with accordingly. So having, whether that be an internal policy regarding unethical behavior and how it will be dealt with, if you do come across it, analyzing how it could potentially be addressed, what are the reporting obligations? Does it have to be reported to SICA? Does it have to be reported to URBA? Whatever the case may be. Ethical reasoning, which can be quite a difficult one, using an ethical reasoning process to deal with the unethical behavior at hand or the dilemma you're faced with. And then, just ensuring public interest focus, ensuring that the public does have a renewed trust in the profession that can be maintained going forward. Your action plan. So the steps of CPD, first would be to review your current practice. So actually assessing whether you currently meet the requirements or the competencies for the 3 ethical areas and how you could potentially develop further in that. So sitting down and actually working through, doing a proper evaluation to say, in personal ethics, I could expand, or, I could do better in this area, and then identifying that development area and planning to undertake a learning activity on that. Once you have done that, you would then record it in your reflective plan. So the learning activity undertaken, did it really address the area or gap you identified, or do you need to do more CPD on that? And then ensuring that even though you have undertaken the CPD, if you do feel you need further development, that you do actually undertake further CPD to address that. Okay. Understanding career break. So career break means when you are not professionally active for more than 9 months for whatever reason. It could be that you are on parenting leave. It could be that you are medically unfit, or that other circumstances which a psycho would have to determine or OBA would have to determine is relevant. But if you're unable to, for a period of more than 9 months, fulfill your professional obligations, you would then not have to comply with the CPD requirements. Okay. Does the CPD policy apply to members on special leave? So if you are on special leave, you will still have to undertake or complete your CPD. Whatever special circumstances or whatever reason you might be on special leave for, or the changes to your responsibilities, that would be reflective in your CPD plan. So it would typically, you have a cover page on your CPD. This is where you would do your reflection or evaluation of what you need based on your current role. It would reflect there. Okay. As part of the CPD cycle, you will still have to consider the maintenance of or the development of your professional competence, technical competence when you plan to return. OBA CPD monitoring. So OBA's additional requirements. So the psycho requirement is that you undertake CPD relating to ethical values and attitudes, personal, professional, and business ethics, those 3 areas. There's no hours requirement from psycho side. However, for OBA, they require that you complete a mandatory 3 hours of ethics CPD, as well as audit and assurance related CPD. And you would have to maintain evidence of this. Okay. Keys to successful CPD compliance: proactively planning. Again, the process of that self-reflection, or self-assessment, to say, okay, currently I'm an audit partner, I'm completing audits for whatever the area may be. However, I feel that I could expand technically on audits of estate planning or whatever the case may be, and then actually addressing that in your CPD annual plan. So actually performing an honest self-assessment on where you're at currently and what you need to be, whatever your career aspirations are, to be at that point later on. Meaningful reflection, so not just documenting what you've learned, but what you've actually applied to the work that you do, or how it specifically address your development needs. So not just reflecting at a high level, actually breaking it down and providing a quality reflection to say, well, this is how this specific activity address my development need, but I have identified that I can further develop in this specific area. Okay. Comprehensive documentation. Again, please do keep records of all learning activities you've undertaken, and please do keep that for 3 years. In reflecting, please do provide a meaningful reflection, any documentation within your CPD plan, even the activities. Don't just state that I attended a webinar that was based on business ethics. Actually include what the topics were discussed in that webinar, or if you did research, what specific topics did you research and read through? Okay. Stay informed. Signing up to the newsletters. I think Psych just sends them out if you are a member. For OBA, I assume they do the same as well. So just ensuring that you are keeping up to date with all communications coming out from both sides. Seek quality learning, ensuring that the provider you are undertaking CPD activities through actually do provide quality training, or if you are doing research, that it is a reputable source. And then embracing the process instead of seeing this as another task just to meet the requirements or just to tick off the box that I've done my CPD, my annual plan is done. Actually embrace the process and sit down and really reflect on what you really do need. It's not just a short-term reflection or self-assessment. This would be throughout your career. So actually really digging deep to find what you really need to progress to where you want to be. Okay. Tax practitioner obligations. So this is CICA's requirements, CICA's and SARS requirements for tax practitioners. They require that tax practitioners undertake a minimum of 18 verifiable CPD hours, and that's broken up into 10 tax-specific CPD hours, 2 on ethics, and then 6 on service-related hours. So it could be additional tax hours, it could be audit, it could be assurance, whatever is relevant to your role. Okay. Annual declaration requirements. So in submitting your annual declaration, you have to complete your checklist of CPD compliance, report on the completion of your CPD. Have you met the hours requirement? Does it meet the ethics standard as well as the professional standards with regards to CICA's code? You also have to declare whether you have any criminal convictions. If I remember correctly, there is a specific question that asks if you have been convicted of any criminal offences in the past 12 months or prior. There's 2 questions based on that. So for tax practitioners, they would also submit the annual declaration on CICA's member portal. It is mandatory. I think, again, it is roughly around the end of February that this has to be done. And then if you have been selected for verification, you'd have to upload your documents. So typically the process is you would log on to your CICA member portal, navigate to member compliance, and then complete the in-depth declaration questionnaire. Ensure that you have correctly answered all of those questions and then submit your declaration. If you have been selected for verification or audit, you would then have to upload all of your CPD annual plan as well as your verifiable activities, all evidence relating to the activities undertaken within that period. What I would like to do is just stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to take you through a demo on a CPD system, just how to document your annual plan and what it could look like. Okay. This is a CPD tool that we have developed. I'm just using this to show you what an annual plan would look like. So you would enter your credentials, click on login, and then I'm going to navigate to annual plans. So what I have done is partially populated a development plan, an annual plan, and I'll just take you through that. So typically you would add a new annual plan. I've already done that, and it would take you to this specific page. So this is where your self-reflection would happen. You would input your user details, the year of your annual plan, what position you currently hold. So for this example, I've put in audit partner, and then your years in position. Next is where you would self-assess or self-reflect. So firstly, you would note down what are your current responsibilities relevant to your role now. Next, you would reflect on your current gaps and potential future roles. And then below we have your short-term goal and your medium-term goal. So relevant to your current role, where would you like to be in the next 12 months? Where would you like to be in the next 24 months, whatever it is? Okay. And this is where you provide that reflection of where your development gaps are. So this would really be relevant to what you are currently doing and where you would look, what you would need, what CPD to address and get you to where you want to be in the future. We're just going to click on update, and then we'll go through to the annual plan. So next to this, we've got development areas. If I click into that, it will take me to all of my existing development areas. So I've included audit development areas, I've included the ethics requirements, and then also the tax one just to update with you guys. So if we click on the tax one, I'm going to add the motivation, which would be keep up to date with changes. We do have these little status bars, so I'm going to leave it as in progress for now, and it will show as red here, whereas the others I have completed already. Okay. So once I've added my development area as well as included my motivation, it could just be that it's an over requirement. If it is just to meet the requirements, you can put that this is a requirement, but if it is over and above, actually state what the motivation was for that development area. Okay, next, I'm going to go to activities. I'm going to add a new learning activity. So for tax specifically, I took part in a webinar. So if I add in my activity here, I can just type in webinar, and then below would be the planned completion date. So I'm going to input that I undertook this in March, and then the description of the activity. So I wouldn't just say budget update. I would try and include as much detail as possible. So what I've done is I've included the topics discussed in this specific webinar. And then the actual completion date typically would be the same as your planned completion date, and then the hours. The hours for this webinar was 4 hours. For those CPD areas where there isn't an hours requirement, you don't have to document it. I do think it is a nice to have, but it doesn't have to be included unless it is required. Okay. I'm going to click add. For those that want to upload any certificates, any attendance registers, whatever it may be, there is an option here. If you click on files, that little button there, you can attach those documents to the actual activity. And then when you PDF your plan, it would PDF with it. Okay. I'm going to go back though, and then next you would do a reflections. This is where that self-assessment based on the development area and the activity undertaken comes in. So I have got my reflection here, and then the reflection date you would include as well. So it's pretty straightforward. I would recommend reflecting on the activity undertaken as soon as possible after the activity was done, just because it is fresh in your mind, or maybe documenting it somewhere if you don't want to do it then, but just so that you do provide a more detailed, more meaty reflection rather than just ticking the boxes. And now that the activity has been included and the reflection is done, they'll both show as completed. Right. Does anybody have any questions?
Don't see any questions at the moment. Just to make a comment, we can provide you with the copies of certificates going back as many years as you want, certainly within the last 3 years if that's the requirement. All you have to do is send us an email and we'll do the rest. At the end of the year, we conduct an annual update for everyone. So if you want to, we'll send you the list of the seminars and webinars that we've had, and we'll send you the recordings. You can tell us what you do and what you need, and we'll definitely supply it. So I see Edwin has got a hand up.
Hi. Yeah, Stan, thanks. I just wanted to ask Nicole, how would you sort of export this or something if you had to send this to Psycha or Urban?
So this is PDFable. You can extract it into a PDF. There is a range of other functionality. I just don't want to take you guys through it, but you can PDF it. I'll show you what it looks like quickly. I haven't attached any documentation to it, so this is just like a blank version of it. But this is typically.
Just so you know, Nicole, your screen's not showing. Okay.
Sorry, there we go.
Yeah.
So it would just basically PDF in order. So yeah, we've got the front cover page. When you use the system, you can input up front your Psycha number, Urban number, tax practitioner number. But below that would be your cover page. So where you did your self-assessment, everything that you've documented with regards to where you currently are and what you need to be at in the future, what CPD you want to undertake. And then below that would be per development area, the actual development area, your learning activities, and then your actual reflection. Okay. So you can PDF this and then just upload it to the psychosite. Any other questions?
Okay. Edwin or Nicole, any other comments you want to make before we close off this session and then bring in Edwin in the next into the next session?
So maybe if somebody wanted to get access to your system, how would they do that, Nicole?
They could either access it just from the domain, which would be www.cpd.catraining.co.za, or they could either email myself or Evan. It would either be nicole@catraining.co.za or evan@catraining.co.za, and we could help you get access if you're looking to add more than one member.
Yeah, I think, Nicole, it's better for everybody just to email you or me directly than going through the domain, because we're going to switch off that functionality.
Okay.
We're going to send out a copy of the recording with the attached notes and everything. So if it's incorporated into your presentation, we'll be circulating that. So if you get it to us later today or early in the morning, we'll be sending out the recording as well to everyone who attended today. So that's how they'll get it. Anyone who wants to access from there. Okay, so thanks very much, Nicole and Evan, for this presentation. I thought it was going to make it easier for accountants, but I'm not too sure about if it has. But anyway, yeah, understood. So we're going to close down for 5 minutes, I think. Edwin, if you come back it's now 13:52. Can we come back at 2 promptly, and then we'll go from there. In the meantime, you'll just change over and start. There will be another break at 3:00. So if that's in order, everyone need to go and make a cup of coffee or tea or anything, just take a break and we'll come back. Just a quick thanks to Nicole and Evan for your presentation and the information, and we'll be circulating everything in the next 24 hours, I guess, Danny, something like that. As soon as we got the recording together. So, yeah.
Thank you very
we'll
much.
be back at 3:00.
Evan, just so you know, your screen of your WhatsApp is visible. Did you hear me, Evan? I mean, Edwin? There, perfect. It's hidden now. All right, perfect.
Right, almost 3 o'clock. We're going to start in a minute or
You mean
two.
2 o'clock?
I mean 2 o'clock. time flies when you're having fun. So we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. Edwin Selbst. I'm sure he's done all his research. And just have one question. Why are we dealing with artificial intelligence when we haven't even got rid of natural stupidity? But I'm sure you're going to explain all that. And Edwin, we'll have a break at 3 o'clock. You want to make some tea or coffee, but right now it's 2 o'clock. And Edwin, the floor's yours. Hello? You muted, no? Edwin?
Oh, I don't know what happened there. I'm back.
Okay. All right. Everybody, I
Do I
think you
need to
heard what
share
I
my
said, so
screen again?
please carry on, and it's over to you.
Yeah, you're going to need to share your screen again. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. To the AI for text practitioners session. So if I can ask you to, I'm one of the few people, trainers, that like it when you're on your phone. So if I could ask you to please also go.
Edwin, you seem to be breaking up. Do you want to maybe turn your video off and just let's see if that improves it, because you keep cutting out.
Edwin, I'm not too sure. Maybe you should.
So I think we've lost Edwin. He's obviously lost signal. His signal obviously dropped. We're going to give him a few minutes just to get back in. I'm going to give him a call and check what's happening. All right, give us a second. Sorry.
Okay, just to tell everyone that certificates will be sent out later this afternoon. We do have one more session in the year coming up in November. That's with Jackie Aronsa for the year-end update. And the notice will be going out in the next week, I guess, once we've sorted out all the particulars. But just look forward to that. If there's anybody has any questions during the session, please post them in the Q&A or in the chat, and Danny will make sure that they get answered. And we'll just wait and see. Sorry about the delay, but I think there are issues today with. I know we did get notices from Vox and a power outage in the northeastern suburbs of Johannesburg are down because of planned maintenance, which was supposed to take place last week, but is being run this week. And so there may be issues around that. So I don't know.
Yeah, everyone's saying he's having a few issues. You're going to quickly swap over to a backup Wi-Fi and try reconnect.
Yeah, I think that's probably the issue. So just a little bit of patience. Sorry about this. Seems we're still waiting. Yeah, Edwin is back.
I've just gone on to my backup, so hopefully that works. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Stan?
Yeah, we can hear. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, so let's hope that works. Give me a moment. I just want to open the slides again and share the screen. Right, there we go. So, sorry, as I was saying, what I'd like to do is ask you to utilize your phone. So if you can scan that QR code, that'll take you to a question. It's totally anonymous. And this is how I'm going to be interacting with you today. There's a couple of questions that I'd like to ask just in the start. But what we'll be looking at is AI, some of the pitfalls, some of the ethical challenges of dealing with AI. And then what I'd like to take you through is just some of the AI tools that I use. I actually have an AI coach that I meet with regularly who assists me and helps me navigate this new world out there. As you can see from my lack of hair, my age, I'm not of the generation X or Z or whatever it is. So I found it quite useful. And what we'll be doing is interacting and understanding the journey I've been on, and hopefully help to understand the journey that you can go on from an AI perspective in terms of tax practitioners, accountants, and the like. So if you can scan that QR code, what I was doing just before I got interrupted was I'm just going to try and go onto the chat and just see if I can post this in the chat as well, if it's not working with the QR code. So give me a moment. I just can't seem to find the chat. So I'm just going to go out of this. Give me one moment. And then hopefully it'll allow me to do that. Just not allowing me to, just can't seem to get to the chat now for some reason. Can I just ask from a show of hands, can you people see the QR code? Are you able to scan it? You can just raise your hands if you can.
Everyone's saying they can. There's a lot of hands going up.
Okay, great. So then let's just have a look and see what your responses are. If you can scan that QR code, so far we've only got one response. So if you can just scan that QR code, and then it could open your phone, take you to a website where you've got 3 questions. So I'll just wait a couple of minutes to see if that's working. Just going to go into the back end and just make sure that this is updating. So for some reason, the link in the in this page is not working, but let me show you what I am getting so you can see. I can see that you guys are responding.
If you swap between the word cloud and all responses, will it maybe refresh it?
No, it didn't. Oh, okay. Let's try. No, it's not, but it's for some reason,
Strange.
I'll just get it here. Give me a moment. So I've got responses. Let me show you what I'm actually seeing. So thank you to those of you who are voting. I know it's not working over there, but thanks, Gauteng, Glen Hazel, Garsfontein, Western Cape, Brackenfell, thank you. Then the next question. Which I just want to have a look at. Right, so most of you saying you utilize AI intermittently. Some of you saying your curiosity, just over 25% of you saying your curiosity has been raised, but you're very nervous. And some of you saying you've never engaged with it, and just over 5% of you saying it's actually part of your life on a day-to-day basis, I would imagine. And most of you saying when we're definitely in danger, which is a very interesting feedback, because sometimes when you present this, that number is a lot of people saying definitely not. So it's interesting to see that quite a few of you are actually feeling that there is a threat. Just saw another vote just came in, so that's why it's updated. So at least it's working offline. I'm not sure why it's not working online, but at least we've got it in on the back end as well. So for those of you that say that you have never engaged with AI, I caution you to say, well, you know, if you've ever been on a website and there's a chatbot, those chatbots are AI driven. And I think it's becoming more and more in terms of assistance and websites. You know, some of the most common medical aids in this country, insurance companies, they're all utilizing these different forms of AI. So, yeah, so thanks to the 20 of you who have communicated. The biggest number coming through, the way this works is Pretoria, Garsfontein seems to be the, Garsfontein, Gauteng and Glen Hazel seem to be the biggest responses, because the bigger the writing, the more people responded that that's where they are. And then let's then move on now, and thanks for your interaction. We'll be continuing with this during the course. We've got some other discussions and feedbacks where we're going to be interacting with you. So in terms of then AI, and I think a lot of you saying you're curious but nervous, and I'll be honest, I used to be very nervous as well. And I think part of this discussion is to unwrap that curiosity and to explore the nervousness and to understand, well, when is that nervousness justified? And when is it something where it's an alarm bell to say, hang on, I may actually be breaching the code, I may be doing something that's, from an ethical perspective, utilizing AI, a potential problem. So the first thing I want to take you through is some challenges with AI as to what actually happened in practice. And the utilization of AI, I think, is critical in today's time. And the reason I say that is there's an actuary that spoke recently at an event, a person by the name of, now the name slips my mind, but what he said, Saxenberg, what he said is that if a student at school is not using AI, by the time they get to university, they are going to be severely disadvantaged because they will be on the back foot in terms of trying to just keep up with what other people know and can access. And when I heard that about a year ago, I said, well, if that applies to a pupil at school who's finishing matric in a year or two, surely that applies to us as professionals as well. And what we see is that AI and machine learning is becoming part of I wouldn't even call it an advantage, but part of a requirement to utilize technology to make sure that the basics can get done. In case you're wondering, this PowerPoint slide was used with the assistance of AI as well. And what AI does is it utilizes a number of computer commands at a huge pace to then determine and respond to certain requests of information or tasks that a person is trying to carry out. And the reason I say that is because when we look at a person with the intelligence and awareness and moral compass, we have a certain ability to reflect and think and make decisions. Whereas all AI is an automated decision based on various algorithms as to what is the most most thought of, the most likely outcome of the question that has been asked. Somebody's asking, are we not depending on AI too much? So I think it depends on the person. I think if it takes me 3 days to prepare a PowerPoint presentation, but I can do that in 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours utilizing AI, well, I think if I'm not using AI, I'm putting myself at a disadvantage. But I do agree that if I'm utilizing AI to take over certain responsibilities of my own, then I agree it's overuse and that's dangerous. And that's what we're going to be discussing. So thanks for the question. So I think what we need to realize is that there are significant benefits, but there are mistakes that can be irreversible and can affect a professional's reputation, their revenue, their compliance, or even their lives. And the cost of failure has never been higher, because once you've utilized something and it's out there, we know at a click of a button with social media, whatever you've done, whatever you've thought can be put into the market. But let's understand some of the failures of AI, and then let's understand also how it can be utilized responsibly to ensure that one can be more productive, more efficient, more knowledgeable. They say that the level of knowledge on most of the AI tools out there, the most common ones, is at a PhD level. And I'm not talking about I'm talking in a profession, so sort of at an accounting level, at a doctor, at a plumber, at a lawyer, an engineer, a computer science program. That's the level of understanding and knowledge that is at a person's fingertips using AI. And that has huge opportunity, but it comes with risk. So, I mean, these are some of the AI failures where a company, Rapid, using an AI coding assistant, it wiped out the entire production database. And this was despite it having been given express instructions not to modify any production codes. The deceptive behavior concealed the errors that the AI tool had created. It generated 4,000 fake users, fabricated test reports, and systematically lied about the results to cover its destructive track. The incident was, you can imagine, disastrous. The entity suffered losses in terms of refunds, and it has subsequently committed to implementing and improving safeguards and monitoring its AI to prevent future occurrences. For those of you that are familiar, Grok's another AI tool. It's been accused of repeatedly declaring anti-Semitic hate speech, and it's had to address this. In July of this year, Elon Musk had to force an emergency shutdown of Grok, and the incident raised serious questions about the safety protocols and the risk of deploying insufficiently tested systems at a scale. Grok also gave step-by-step instructions to a person to break into a Minnesota Democrat's home, including specific tools needed, optimal timing windows, and strategic recommendations based on social media analysis of the potential target schedule and habits. In terms of corporate and government chatbots, in March 2024, New York City Microsoft-powered chatbot advised entrepreneurs how to break employment law, incorrectly claiming that they could take employees' tips, fire workers who complained about harassment, and serve contaminated food without any consequences. In the travel industry, Air Canada incurred legal liability and was audited to pay damages for a person that asked the process to be followed in the case of the need to travel for a bereavement and what the fair policies were. And based on the information the chatbot gave, then utilized that to make their bookings. And then when they wanted to submit a refund for their expenses, they were told, no, that's not the process. But the court found that no, the person had a valid claim and relied on the information, and therefore Air Canada had to refund, was legally liable based on its chatbot. I think the biggest concern we have around AI is the hallucinations. And we've had situations in South Africa as well this year whereby a legal practitioner fabricated cases and an entire legal argument which was based on total made up law, or not so much law, but cases that didn't exist. In America, this has happened with a legal practitioner having been fined. On the medical side, diagnostic failures with COVID-19, where you had machine learning algorithms were utilized to try and diagnose whether or not what was medically wrong. And you had chatbots that were utilizing information based on whether patients were lying down or standing up in an X-ray, rather than looking at the X-ray to determine whether or not there was anything medically wrong with him. But yet on the positive side, you have a situation where they fed 10 doctors and 10 AI platforms the same medical information, and the AI diagnosis was much more accurate than the medical professionals. There's also where databases have been wiped, and this is linked to that Replit AI coding story that I spoke about before, where AI utilizes its own algorithms to determine its actions and then lies about it. And then I think while these are the failures, and I'm alerting you to the failures, because as professionals, we need to take a step back and we need to realize that like with anything, there's risks. And those risks for a professional, imagine if you submitted tax information based on the accounting records that were totally manipulated. AI tools are guilty of hallucinations. Hallucinations, for those of you that aren't familiar, is when the AI tool makes things up, where there is no basis for it other than a algorithm which said this is the way it should be. You know, a simple example would be is, you know, you get these autocorrect where you type something and then it shows what the next word should be. Now, if you use that on your phone, it starts to learn your way of writing. So if the first word is good morning, it's likely that, a person may say, how are you? Or how are you doing today? And therefore, it then predicts what is going to happen. But if, for example, an algorithm says, well, after the most common word after story is child, but that doesn't make sense in the context of the sentence you're trying to write, obviously you need to check that. As we can see, there can be bias or discrimination based on what's happening in the media, based on what's happening on social platforms, and AI tends to learn from this and then replicate it. What's critical is the corporate or professional accountability. So just like when you type a WhatsApp, if you've got that predictive text on, you need to check that, and you need to check before it goes out, before you hit send. Luckily, there's now options. If it has been sent, you can edit it. But, up until a while ago, once it was out there, that was it. And then also what we have is, regardless of automation and third-party involvement, there needs to be a responsible individual which oversees the responses, the algorithms, the output of AI, so that there is protection to industries, to the public, and ultimately to your clients and to yourself, depending on how you're utilizing AI.
Edwin,
But having said that, sorry,
there is a question. I don't know if you saw it.
is that another one? Yeah, okay. So I have a few chats on ChatGPT in which I repeatedly prompt it that the chats are private and confidential and ours only. Is that a reliable protective measure? Does an AI tool stick to such a prompt? So let's hold off on that. The reason is because I'm going to speak about confidentiality just now, and I think that'll answer your question as we go through the very high level of areas of the code, just to understand what do we mean by open AI, and what does it mean if you log in, and what can we put on, what can we share on a ChatGPT platform. So the final thing I just wanted to say on this slide is just to make sure that when it comes to data quality, that somebody's taking responsibility for that. For example, when I developed this training material, I went through every single slide. I changed things. I made sure that the information was appropriate to the audience that I was presenting. And it's interesting, if I had to take this PowerPoint presentation, upload it, and say, change this to auditors, make this more relevant for auditors, or make this more relevant to students, university students. There's the ability to do that, but I need to make sure that the changes made are appropriate, and that's where we need to take that responsibility. So let's then understand that the human element remains crucial. These disasters we were talking about demonstrate that while there is huge potential, there are entirely new categories of risks that require constant vigilance, thoughtfulness, proper governance frameworks, and ongoing monitoring. Now, depending on what level you're utilizing AI, that will then determine how much monitoring you must have. And sometimes that monitoring can just be you having an oversight of it. The more automated it is, the greater the governance frameworks need to be to make sure that what's going out is appropriate. And therefore, the failures often involve not just technical issues, but one needs to understand where there are gaps in the human process utilizing AI. There may be challenges with organizational culture. And there needs to be a clear understanding of the limitations of AI and the appropriate use cases. The first time I prepared a PowerPoint presentation, I had just trying to check, is that a new question? No, that's the one. The first time I had a PowerPoint presentation prepared by AI, I spent a considerable amount of time checking the technical content of the entire presentation. And in the middle of my presentation, I had some people started laughing. And there was a group of about 40 professional accountants. And I said, what's so funny? And they said, no, just your one image. I'd utilized AI-generated images, and one of the AI tool that I'd used had produced a picture of a person sitting at a desk in front of a keyboard, in front of a laptop, dressed in a suit, and they just didn't have a head. And I'm saying that was, it was a mild slip, but and potentially a humorous one, because I checked the technical content. I didn't check the images, but I mean, there could have been there something that was visually offensive. But it was a huge lesson to me to say, hang on, I need to check everything when I rely on AI, or not when I rely, when I utilize. I can't rely on it at all. Only afterwards did I come up with an answer. If you use AI, a human doesn't need a head because the thinking's done by the tool. But yeah, there's still that human element that remains, that we need to have that proper oversight. So why AI matters for sole practitioners, for professional accountants, for tax accountants, is because in the past, knowledge was power. That changed to a certain degree with the internet, that you could get information. Now, as I've said, the availability of information at the click of a button is at a doctorate level, at a master's, PhD level. So therefore, if you have the information, it doesn't mean you have a competitive advantage. The advantage now is to access the information, or to put that information in a format that it can be marketed and sold and communicated to your clients, or to be utilized in a manner where you perform the work that you do. And that then will help you to be much more competitive. So the advantages of AI is it can streamline repetitive admin tasks. A very simple way of doing this is on your Outlook. You can have certain, if you use Outlook as your email, you can have certain rules where if if an email comes from me, it must go into the folder, I don't know, AI training. Now, that's a simple thing. I've got my AI coach, for example, gets a fortune of emails and has used an AI tool to summarize his emails on a daily basis and also prioritizes them so that he can then focus time on what's important. And also, it comes up with a proposed response. So if Stan or Danny send me an email, and my interaction with them is normally with training, it can analyze it and say, well, based on my interactions, it'll say, thanks for your email. Automated response goes off within 10 minutes. Edwin's currently training. He'll get back to you within the next 24 hours. Or if it's something even more useful, could be, well, there's a date in there. They're saying, well, can I do training on the 22nd of February? And AI tool will then look at my diary and have a proposed response to say, Danny asked if he can do training on the 22nd of February. I've checked that your diary is free. Proposed response is training for the 22nd of February, confirmed as long as we do it in the afternoon between 1 and 5. And then all I've got to do is hit enter or send, and that'll go automatically. You can imagine in terms of reconciliation, in terms of compliance and accuracy, and then using text data-driven advice. I know somebody who has a tax tool. It's not AI, but it's a tool where it sort of automates and takes a person's all the tax information that's available on SARS's website and puts it in a much more readily available format to utilize for tax consulting. So, as we've said, we need to make sure that we look at AI within the code as professional accountants. And what we have is we have a code of ethics, and that code has various principles, the first of which is that one needs to maintain integrity. One needs to make sure that one acts professionally, and that would have an impact on credibility of your trust with clients, with SARS, if you're in the tax area, or regulatory bodies like SICA or the RBA. And there is a risk of over-reliance on AI-generated tax information or accounting information. For example, Sage can import a bank statement and post it automatically based on history. That's what my bookkeeper does for some of the work I do. And, I can't just sort of take that, print it out, send it into SARS. I had a look, and because I'm an executive of an estate, whereas in the past there was only one property that was involved, so now it puts all the rates and municipal charges to the one property. And we've said, well, hang on, we look at that, we say, well, AI great, but no, we need what you're assuming, because there's now two payments, that it relates to the same property. And therefore, one needs to maintain professionalism, and one needs to make sure that information is not false or misleading when submits that to source or anybody else, a client or whatever you're dealing with. So the ethical challenge when it comes to objectivity, another fundamental principle of the code is that AI tools assume certain constants, and therefore what may be appropriate in one circumstance may be incorrect or biased in another situation. The example I gave, just in terms of, well, if I had to just generate a profit and loss for different properties, well, that would be biased towards what it's expecting because of the past, where there was just, for example, one property or one specific tax treatment, or a most common way of calculating, what can we say, CGT valuation versus actually looking at the different alternatives. And therefore, it becomes our responsibility to take that information that we're getting and analyze it, rather than sometimes just do the actual computation, because sometimes a machine can do it quicker and more efficiently and come up more accurately. But somebody needs to take a step back and look at it and make sure and interpret it and evaluate whether or not it's actually doing the right thing. And another example would be to look at what's best practice. Look at training information, look at methodologies and see, well, is this methodology appropriate? Is the tax deductions allowable? Are they expected under these scenarios, rather than just rely on the information that's coming out? And one needs to make sure that objectively the information hasn't been designed to project or to arrive at a certain scenario or expected outcome, be that taxable loss, for example. Then hopefully this is where I'm going to discuss the question that was raised before on confidentiality and data protection. So client confidentiality is a cornerstone of our profession, but AI tools create new risks when information is uploaded, and practitioners need to navigate both their obligations in terms of the code as well as POPIA. We have a responsibility to protect information that is confidential, making sure it's not disclosed or utilized by other parties, and uploading sensitive client information to a public AI system like ChatGPT. Even if you have a login, that information is no longer confidential. Because if, for example, I don't know, I developed a new patent and uploaded that onto ChatGPT and asked it to critique it, etc., and then you then are looking at developing a patent, that information is now freely available on anybody who logs into ChatGPT. Another example would be, well, let me tell you an example. I do quality reviews in the audit space. I do technical training on company legislation and the like, and ethics and the auditing standards. And there's a auditor that asked, they said that this entire audit has been done using AI. Can somebody have a look at the quality of the audit work to see whether or not it meets the auditing standards? And turns out what transpired is the person literally uploaded every single document of the clients and produced an audit file using AI. They may be complying with the auditing standards, but they broke every single confidentiality principle in the SICA or URBA code of ethics. And so in terms of your question, I'm just double checking that I've answered that. So, yeah, I mean, you know, whatever you're putting up there is available for AI to utilize. So if, for example, I said, you know, how do you calculate, I don't know, a tax deduction in terms of Section 24C, and I develop a new tool, and then I put that on, or I buy a tool, and then you put that tool and say, well, check this, does this comply with Section 24C of the Income Tax Act? Well, that means anybody who does a tax query on ChatGPT has now got that confidential information. So I think we need to just make sure that when we work with AI, that we utilize that responsibly. Okay, sorry. So thanks for the clarity. So you've said you're utilizing this in terms of for research. So yeah, I think, you know, I'm not sure. I know different universities have the ability to determine and put information through AI checkers or something to make sure that it is original. I think, provided you're not putting anything confidential there, I believe that that would be okay because it's your research and you like utilizing information that's on the internet. But just make sure that you know, you do what you need to in terms of putting it into your own words and making sure that it is appropriate to the your masters that you're currently studying or your PhD. I hope that's answered your question. So now what I'd like to do is ask you to use this on the chat and tell me how many of these how many AI platforms you recognize from these. If you can just going to ask you to just vote on that. I'm just monitoring the time as well. There we go. Okay, so that's working live for a change. I don't know what happened to the previous one. So I've had 10 responses so far. While we're waiting, I'm just going to check if there's another question. Oh, okay. So don't put it in the chat, your answers, please. If you can just scan the QR code and then it gets summarized over here. Okay, somebody recognizing 5, so that would be another vote for the 25%. That just increases that 25%. So I'm just going to go back a slide. So thanks to those of you who have voted. Not sure why it's not allowing me to go back. Give me a sec. I'm just going to try and see. Those of you, so the one in this block over here, I'm just trying to see if I can get a pointer or something, a laser pointer. So there we go. This one over here is ChatGPT. This one over here is something called Perplexity. Grammarly, I don't know if you've heard of that or seen that. That's something that comes up quite often as a spell checker on some of the, some of the tools, Word or emails, etc. This one over here is Copilot. This over here is something called Notebook LM, which I'm going to show you at. It's quite a very useful one. This is Canva. I don't know how to use it, but my daughter does. And this over here is Gamma. Gamma is the one that I've used to prepare these PowerPoint presentations, believe it or not. So the rest we'll discuss in due course, but I think we're approaching 3 o'clock, and Stan did promise you a tea break. So I think if we can synchronize watches and be back at in 10 minutes, and then we'll continue afterwards.
Okay, so we'll be back at 15:10. Is that okay?
Yeah, so maybe just before, so we can check that everyone's here, so we can restart at 15:10.
Perfect. Okay.
Great. Thanks. I'm back. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes for everybody else to join, but I see there's a question in the meantime. Okay, just a thanks.
That a 10-minute break is up. I hope everyone is back and ready to finish up.
Right. Thanks, Danny. So I think in the interest of time, let's get moving. So, I think when it comes to possible AI applications, and just please be very careful because I'm just discussing possibilities, just please be very careful in terms of making sure you're not breaching any confidentiality that we spoke about. So you could have document processing, so there could be automated extraction or classification of financial documents, receipts or tax forms. That could be very accurate. That could be utilized. You could utilize this for compliance monitoring, making sure if there's regulatory changes or automatic alerts. I remember there was a particular company that used to develop an accountant's desktop calendar where would actually include, all the VAT, PAYE dates, tax returns, provisional tax, etc. I mean, this can all be automated. Utilizing predictive analytics, for example, forecasting of tax liabilities based on expected profits, identifying optimization opportunities, possible scenario planning, strategic decision, looking at risk detection, potential audit triggers, compliance risks. As I mentioned, I operate in the assurance space, and I've got a client who received a letter from the audit regulator from their, it's not the inspections department, it was the investigations department, and they asked him to respond within 7 working days how he should not be investigated, on what basis he should not be investigated for lack of professional behavior because he had signed off over 300 audits in a year. This client of mine has got a practitioner who's also a friend who said, oh, well, he's going to fight this and he's going to tell them, take it to the Constitutional Court that they have no authority to demand information like this. This colleague of his also got a similar letter. And my client was saying, look, understand they're trying to protect the public. 75% of my audits that I signed off were on dormant companies. So that's why he was able to justify that. Now, that report or irregularity I'm sure was generated by taking all the information, getting an average and saying, well, these are the outliers. Let them, let them explain. So let's have a look at like some practical applications of AI. So, one can utilize AI to perform test cases, to transform your daily workflows in terms of deploying algorithms for potential responses, making sure that there is an application which is used to identify best practice and thereby making sure that while utilizing AI, you could make sure that you still need to make sure that you maintain and adhere to your professional standards. So it says, I believe that most, if not all, systems and solutions will incorporate doing so already. AI functionality into their software anyway, so it will become part of your work whether you want it or not. That's a valid point. A lot of the accounting packages have this built in, but I think we're saying now that you've got that, how can you utilize it to the next level? In terms of SaaS e-filing and efficiency, so one can utilize it, we said, from an administrative point of view, automated reminders. One can use AI scheduling that would assist in making sure that deadlines are not missed. I had a situation where a provisional tax payment for an entity that I oversee, that I'm a director of, was actually filed late. Client communication and support. So I think the possibilities here, if you find the right tool, are quite endless in terms of looking at text generation or simplification. I know somebody who's the professional accountant who's dealing with a legal matter and has actually used AI to draft an opposing affidavit based on information, sections of the law, etc. And then he's getting a lawyer to look over that. But as an accountant, he's utilizing AI, which is probably saving him thousands. One can have standard responses or standard engagement communications or standard engagement letters. And you may have one already, but now's an opportunity where you could probably utilize that in terms of seeing whether or not that is there any changes or recommendations. I mean, I had a situation where I was looking at an audit report that was going to be published. I removed the client's names and year ends, etc., and then put it into AI to see, well, what does it identify relative to the standards and the enhanced auditor reporting rules, which are applicable in South Africa now. There can be utilization in terms of standard forms or reports that you're going to be issuing. there's also complex tax calculations that can be performed based on confidentially taking information, uploading it without it being evident, to what entity it relates, and then asking the AI tools to check this for accuracy and compliance with South African tax legislation, as an example. Obviously, that comes with huge risks, and that's why one needs to make sure one takes a step back and looks at this from a responsible manner. But what I've also realized is that there is it becomes very important how you ask a question to AI, and the first question you ask it in a chat sometimes determines the way in which it thinks thereafter. There's a new profession that's opened up in the AI arena called a prompt engineer. And that is a person that has studied different AI platforms and knows how to draft proper instructions to get the results that you want. I was utilizing it on a particular engagement, and I was sitting next to a colleague who's very academic. And what we were doing was I was trying to get a certain template designed by ChatGPT using a standard instructions and the information that's out on the internet. And I looked at my results, and the person opposite me did something similar, and the information I got was pretty meaningless, and the format and level of detail that person, this colleague, got was very useful. And that became a learning tool to understand how to actually draft these instructions properly. Other possibilities is document scanning, but this is one that I want to caution you on, because this is where we now start potentially breaching the confidentiality requirements of the code. So, if you're able to extract the confidential information and then like VAT numbers, like what's his name? Client names, etc. Well, then you could maybe start utilizing this. But I must admit, I think, as it's like with anything, with a new toy. Sometimes you start working with it, and you'll end up spending more time trying to work out how to use it. And then it ends up taking you more time than it actually would have done if you'd done it manually. So, you need to build that in terms of making sure you use it intelligently and effectively and efficiently. So it actually ends up saving you time. One can also sort information, categorize information, so that it will then be in a format and be able to be utilized for whatever process or input you require. And then, like Frank mentioned just now, the things like Xero or Sage or QuickBooks have now got these streamlines, the utilization of AI as part of their tools to then generate monthly reports and postings and GLs, etc., tax information and the like. So, you know, it's now utilizing that and making sure that how then do we make sure if there is AI, we utilize it properly, and if there isn't, how can we supplement what's in these accounting systems? So, you know, another possibility is looking at a tax return and, you know, deleting the confidential information and having AI, for example, give you a review, you know, checking mathematical accuracy, checking whether or not there may have been information which should have come across to different fields that hasn't. Obviously, if you're using things like e-filing, etc., you know, some of these checks are built in automatically. But if you aren't, you know, this is an opportunity to start utilizing this. Looking at completeness checks, looking at, you know, anomaly detection. Maybe there's something that just doesn't make sense. You know, I remember there was a partner when I was doing articles, and we spent, I think it was a 2-week or 3-week audit, and the partner looked at the financial statements and said there's a problem with the stock. And it turns out it was right. He was right. Just by looking at that anomaly, looking for something that didn't seem right, he knew the client's business very well. And we'd spent 2 weeks or 3 weeks auditing and a week or something on inventory. And the partner just knew that there was a problem just from his understanding of what is of the knowledge of the business. This, I think we've spoken about in sufficient detail, so I'm not going to take up too much time here. But I do think it's important that you know, we utilize it, the bookkeeping automation, and like we said, as Stan said, it's part of most packages anyway. But understand it and understand where the risks are and what can go wrong. As I was saying, the categorization is based on machine learning, based on algorithms, and just because something has happened 5 times before doesn't mean that the 6th time it's correct the way it's going to be processed, because there may be an additional payment that's relating to a different expense or a different line item. Other possible areas are for VAT verification, looking at different items and seeing whether or not there should be VAT input on that. I'm aware of a client that had an error in their accounting system, whereby the system had been set up in such a way that a particular stock code, when it was sold, was mistakenly set up that it was exempt from VAT. So a way would be is to, you know, to sort of take sometimes we can't necessarily use AI for this, but you could use macros created on Excel or something to equivalently do the same thing, and just, you know, recompute everything to see what's the VAT code for all inventory items, as an example, just to make sure if you were doing a VAT compliance audit. Looking at PAYE accuracy, understanding, upload those standard tables with the rebates, etc., and utilize that to compute, to check RP5s or something like that could be a use. Then looking at the ability of our implementation with regards to ChatGPT plugins or the like, to integrate it into different platforms. Other possibilities of utilizing AI could be salary versus dividend optimization strategies to see how best to structure a person's salary, ensuring that it is tax efficient. There could be entity structure planning in terms of tax strategies, income levels, growth protection, and then, as we said, project tax liabilities under different scenarios, looking at a cash flow, developing a cash flow, putting in certain parameters, and then asking AI to literally do the modeling. And then some implementation tips to start thinking about is, when it came to the administrative side of things, I started dabbling in it. I trained a PA. I had a part-time PA. Just didn't have enough work with at one stage to keep a PA busy full-time. So I trained them on various things, including PowerPoint presentations and responses to emails, etc. And then the person left. So what I ended up doing is taking what I was paying the PA and invested that into AI, because now I have certain paid AI platforms, like I said, in terms of the PowerPoint presentations for me, which is a huge time saver. Look at some of the low-cost or free AI tools. Some of them are phenomenal, and I'm going to be demonstrating some of them for you just now, that I've utilized and that I've learned about. And I think, it was fascinating. My AI coach said that what he does is, if he's looking at trying a particular AI tool, they often have a free option, or sometimes they have a sign-up option, but the first 7 days are free. And provided you cancel within those 7 days, you've then got access to the paid version, and it's not going to cost you a cent, just for you to try out and see whether or not it's actually going to meet your requirements. Critical to make sure that when it comes to confidentiality, that is maintained in terms of your client information, your own information, and in terms of any information that, even if it's a paid AI tool like ChatGPT, where you sign in, as I've said, that doesn't mean it is confidential. I see there is a question. I'll get to that just now. And then probably the most important thing is to maintain your professionalism, to apply your professional diligence and due care, making sure that any outputs are reviewed, analyzed, be that submitted to SaaS or clients, and then having a look at, if you relied on tools, the mathematical accuracy, making sure that the compliance is appropriate, the tax law has been adhered to. And you know, it's quite fascinating. I was speaking to this actuary, and he was saying he does a lot of coding, and he sometimes gets one AI tool to develop it, and then he uses another AI tool to check it. And then with his knowledge, he can see whether or not it's debugging it appropriately or not. So there's always that level of professionalism that you cannot avoid, but making sure that you can start utilizing it and responsibly. Is there a workshop or step-by-step assistance where you can start slowly implementing AI tools? Look, I know, for example, for those of you that are Vodacom subscribers, I actually won a AI training, free AI, I can't remember, I think it was a 6 or 8 week platform on their free spins that they have, which I utilized. It was quite interesting to see how AI could be used in a professional basis. But you know, if there's a particular AI tool that you want to utilize, I'd actually ask the AI tool to ask you to train you how to do it, and ask, you know, look at it as to, you know, there's a lot on the internet, etc. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. What I'd like to do now is just take you through a couple of AI tools that I utilize for different things. Some of them may be more or less relevant to you, but I think it would be very useful to see, you know, what's available and what's out there. So the first one I want to show you is something called Notebook LM. And this one, I use the free one. And once again, my AI coach introduced me to this. And I just want to show you how powerful this is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up just want to open up the Selbst website. And I'm going to paste that Selbst website, the URL, into Notebook LM. So create new. You can see this is Notebook LM. I'm going to link it to a website, paste the URL in, insert it, and what it's going to do now is we can then generate a number of different alternatives. The one we can do is we can get a mind map of the entire website, which effectively will show you the way the website has been set up. If there are specific sections or areas on that website that you're looking to get an understanding of, or where it is, you know, there's some websites that are set up better than others, and you know, it's becomes sometimes very difficult to find things, but you know it's there. I'm not one that uses the website of SARS, not my area of specialization, but very useful. What I do also is I mentor trainee accountants, part of, sorry, not trainee accountants, SAICA young CAs, as part of SAICA's mentoring program. And what I've utilized is I had 2 mentees this year, both of them were unemployed. So when one of them was going for an interview, we went to the one website of the prospective employer and literally plugged in the URL and asked for a quiz. Don't know why the quiz didn't work. Let's just delete that. But here, for example, is a summary of the website, and you can see of how things are. Hasn't actually done it that well, but I think it's because they've now they want you to go for the paid version, because it's actually only gone 1 or 2 steps, whereas in the past, when I looked at this, you could get an entire what's the word? An entire let's just see if it'll do the quiz again, because I may have stopped it because I was in the middle of doing something. So this is just based on linking the URL to the website. But yeah, so this is something I find, you know, and the advantage of this is it's just focused on that website. What's also very useful, I find, is you know, if you're using CPD, and here I've got CPD. This is the paid version, and these are sort of some of the things that I've been you can see some of the text. And what's quite fascinating is, you know, the ability to upload. If you've got the paid version, you can upload like 10 documents, provided, as we've said, they're not confidential. Well, then you can utilize that, and that becomes quite a fascinating way in which you can obtain information and understand it. This is interesting. I'll have to check with my AI coach, but the quiz is not working. I'm just going to try and do this with another URL. Let's just do a new one. See, I don't know why, but it used to work. Let me just see. I'm just going to go to SAICA's website, because that's the one I'd run it on the past. So here we go, generate a quiz. Let's just see what happens if we just go generate. While it's doing that, is you click on this. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear, but there's an audio overview of a discussion of 2 people discussing what this website does, what SAICA does. So it's you know, it's quite fascinating and useful to see how you can utilize that. And, for example, a lot of the tools now are having all of these AI platforms have a automated link in some of the Microsoft tools. I'm just going to open for you, for example, Microsoft PowerPoint, just a blank one. And, one of the things that I utilize, for example, is to design the questions that you're seeing is something called Forms. It's a Microsoft product, which is available on the business platform, and you can literally add a new question. And I'll just show you how easy it is with a new technology. So you just insert, create a new form. Just not my day with IT. It's taking incredibly slow today. A new quiz. Okay, so now it's asking me to log in. Sorry, so I'm going to just try and do it a different way. Give me a sec. It will be a bit quicker. So if we do it here, a new form. Right, and here's that something. It's literally it's already available, developed, and now here's the QR code and everything for you to vote on. This will work live immediately. The other tool I wanted to show you is a tool called Gamma. Which, sorry, just give me a sec. I just want to see if well, then I'm just going to close. That's the one I want. So here we go. So here's a quiz on Psycho. It's come up with 7 questions based on the website. Before I was getting 20, so I think I just upgraded it recently. If you want more information, you need to get the paid version. But, which major international forum does Psycho support South Africa's leadership in? The next question, which of the following is listed as key topics for Psycho in Foresight Summit? That's a summit that took place 2 weeks ago. SAICA issued a press release on the 23rd of September to reject allegations for in which media article. You know, it's just quite fascinating what you can see from technology. The other website AI tool that I just want to show you quickly is something called Gamma, and I'll show you the free version. So it's not that one. It's I don't know if I can show you the free version because it may log me in automatically. Yeah, it logs me in automatically. But I mean, these are the sort of the courses that I've developed on Gamma. But if you had to just sort of look at something, say we wanted to generate from online, from a one-line prompt in a few seconds. So let's say we wanted 15 slides, traditional font, English UK. And let's say we wanted let's do what CPD. Let's do CPD requirement for professional accountants in South Africa. Who are members of SAICA or SAICA, and are also registered tax. So I've asked for 15 slides, and what you'll see now is it'll start generating that information. So there it's giving you your slides as it is. And then you can change it to make it, this is, you can see over here, by clicking on this, this is my Sorry Consulting logo with my colors, etc., that are already programmed in. I can change it to one of my clients, or you can set it any way you want. You can have the wording on the text content to be concise or minimal. You can make it detailed or extensive. You can ask it to add additional notes, and then you click generate, and it actually it's now summarized some information. You can do this per slide, and yeah, so this is just sort of a phenomenal way in which I utilize AI, and I hope this has been informative. And yeah, don't know if you've got any questions or anything in the last 5 minutes, but I think that's what I wanted to discuss with you.
Okay, so anyone got any questions or want to raise your hand, or you want to put it in the chat? Just wanted to say, Edwin, thanks for in-depth sort of functionality on the explanation of the functionality. I have to say that I've used AI quite extensively. I found it absolutely amazing and really very extensive, very powerful. The free versions are fine up to a point, but they give you very limited information. When you purchase them, like Chat or Gamma or any of these, they give you a whole lot more, and you can actually do amazing things with it. For example, if you wanted to build a house and you wanted a bill of quantities, you can actually, if you ask the right questions and set it up, it'll do it almost all for you. If you wanted an organization and you wanted to send an email, you wanted people to send an email, let's say members, to interrogate what the rules are or anything to do with the organization, you set up an email, you send the email, it'll interrogate the constitution or the other documents you load, and you'll get back an answer within seconds of telling you what the criteria for the membership is or whatever particular thing is that you want to do. It's fascinating stuff. I think there's going to be, a lot of this will be built in, but I really believe that the process is getting more and more advanced every day. And one thing about these systems, they actually learn from you and they increase. So when you put, they expand to suit it. And when you do ask it a question, it learns from your question. And it's really mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, indeed. But like we said, they're a tool and needs to be utilized responsibly. I think that's the key.
Yes, and check again, because you often get fictitious things that sometimes makes up stuff based on other information, and you got to be wary. So I think that, yeah, you got to check it.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyone got any other questions, comments? Okay, so Edwin, thanks for a very well thought out and well presented afternoon, and thank you for that. Thank you for everyone for joining. I really appreciate your joining us. There is one more webinar to take place towards the end of the year. We'll send you the details soon. Certificates will be on their way to you this afternoon. And I don't know, Danny, if there's anything you want to add.
Nothing from my side. Thank you again, Edwin. It was very informative. And yeah, so
Okay,
much
Edward,
that can be done with
the
AI.
last, sorry, what did you say? Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's all right. I just said so much can be done with AI. But yeah, you carry on.
Amazing. Okay, Edwin, anything you want to add?
No, thank you. Just thanks to you and Danny, and yeah, wish everybody a great afternoon further.
Great. Okay, you can, if you're not at home already, you can now go home. Okay, cheers, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.